Tribe left Apache girl hanging to perish. Until the lone rancher rode in the sun rose slowly over the endless desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The heat was already strong, pressing down on the sandy earth. In the middle of this harsh land, a young Apache girl named Nava walked carefully, her small feet sinking slightly into the hot sand with every step. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders, and her eyes, wide with fear and determination, scanned the horizon. She was alone, separated from her family and her tribe, and she did not know what dangers awaited her. Nava had been part of a small Apache group traveling across the desert to find water and safety. They had been on the move for days, following old trails that led from one hidden spring to another. Her tribe was cautious, knowing that rival groups sometimes roamed these lands, ready to attack or take what was not theirs. But the desert was unforgiving, and even a short mistake could mean life or death. Nava's small hands clutched a leather pouch with a few nuts and dried berries, the last food she had left. Her throat was dry, and every step seemed heavier than the last. The morning air was silent except for the soft rustling of the wind over the sand. Nava remembered her father's warning. "Stay close to the tribe, little one. Never wander alone." The desert does not forgive. But now, the warning had come too late. During the previous night, when the group made camp near a rocky ridge, a rival faction had attacked suddenly. Chaos erupted. Screams echoed, horses whinnied, and smoke curled up into the night sky. Nava had hidden behind a large boulder, holding her breath as shadows moved across the ground. When morning came, she realized she had been left behind. Her tribe was gone, and the attackers had vanished. She was alone. As the sun climbed higher, the heat grew unbearable. Nava stumbled across the rocky ground, her legs shaking from exhaustion. She found a small dip in the sand and dropped to her knees, drinking from the small water skin she had hidden. The water was warm and barely enough to quench her thirst, but it gave her a moment of strength. She knew she had to keep moving, but the desert seemed endless. Every direction looked the same: rolling dunes, jagged rocks, and the glaring sun overhead. Hours passed, and Nava's energy began to fail. Her lips were cracked, her throat dry, and her feet blistered. She tried to remember the small signs her tribe had taught her. Look for birds flying in the distance. Follow the shadows of the rocks to find shade. And always, always carry water. But the desert was vast, and the signs were faint. She had been walking in circles without realizing it. Her body trembled with fatigue, and she could feel the dizziness creeping in. At midday, the unthinkable happened. A sudden gust of wind swept across the desert, kicking up sand into the air. Nava tried to shield her eyes, but the wind was relentless. Sand stung her face, and she lost her balance. She fell to her knees, coughing and rubbing her eyes. When the wind calmed, she looked around and realized she was near a rocky outcrop, a place she had not noticed before. In her desperation, she crawled toward it, hoping for some kind of shelter. But as she reached the rocks, she heard a noise that made her freeze. Voices, low, harsh, and unfamiliar, came from behind. She turned slowly and saw a small group of strangers emerging from the rocks. Her heart pounded in her chest. They were not her tribe. They were armed with sticks and knives, their faces set in hard lines. Nava's mind raced. She tried to run, but her legs were weak, and she stumbled over the uneven ground. The strangers approached quickly, and before she could react, they grabbed her. Nava struggled, but she was no match for their strength. They tied her hands with rough rope, and she realized with horror that they intended to leave her in the desert. The ropes were tight, cutting into her skin, and she could barely move. They said nothing as they left her tied to a post near the edge of the rocks. Nava's heart sank. She was alone, and the sun was high in the sky, beating down on her without mercy. She tried to call for help, but her voice was weak, and the vast desert swallowed her words. Hours passed. The heat became unbearable, and Nava felt her energy slipping away. She tried to remember her father's teachings: stay calm, conserve energy, and look for ways to survive. She scanned the horizon, hoping to see a figure, a shadow, anything that could bring hope. Her throat burned, and her stomach ached with hunger. Every movement was painful, but she refused to give up. She whispered to herself, "I must survive!" As the afternoon wore on, the desert seemed to close in around her. Shadows grew long, and the temperature began to drop slightly, but it offered little relief. Nava's thoughts drifted to her family, to the warmth of the fire at night, to the sound of laughter and stories shared among the tribe. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. Crying would waste energy. She focused instead on small movements, adjusting the ropes slightly, trying to find a position that would allow her to rest without falling. By late afternoon, exhaustion overcame her completely. She lay on the hot sand, feeling the sun's warmth seeping into her skin. Every sound seemed louder: the rustle of the wind, the distant call of a bird, the scuttling of small desert creatures. Nava's mind wandered to dreams of water, cool shade, and the safety of her tribe. She knew that surviving the night would be even harder, with temperatures dropping and predators becoming more active. Her young mind wrestled with fear and determination, understanding that only her courage and willpower could carry her through. As the sky turned a deep orange, Nava noticed something unusual. A small cloud of dust appeared on the horizon, moving steadily toward her. Her heart leapt. Could it be a traveler? A friend? Or another danger? She tried to sit up, but the ropes held her firmly. She could only watch as the figure approached, riding on a lone horse. The rider's silhouette grew clearer, and she realized it was a man, moving with purpose across the desert. For the first time that day, Nava felt a flicker of hope. She did not know who he was or if he would help her, but his presence was a lifeline in the endless desert. She called out weakly, waving her hands as much as the ropes would allow. The rider slowed as he approached, carefully observing her. Nava could feel her heart pounding faster, and a mixture of fear and relief swept through her. The man dismounted, approaching her slowly. He was tall, wearing a wide-brimmed hat to protect from the sun, and his eyes were kind but cautious. Nava's voice trembled as she tried to speak. The man knelt beside her, examining the ropes and the post she was tied to. "Hold on, little one," he said softly. "I will get you out of here." With careful hands, the man loosened the ropes and lifted Nava to her feet. She felt weak but safe, leaning on him for support. The desert around them was still vast and unforgiving, but for the first time in hours she felt a spark of hope. She realized that survival might be possible, and that help could come from the most unexpected places. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert, Nava and the man stood together, facing the challenges ahead. She did not yet know who he was or why he had come, but she understood one important thing. In the middle of the harshest desert, courage, hope, and kindness could change everything. The man helped Nava to sit on the ground, shading her face from the fading sun with his wide hat. The warmth of the desert was slowly leaving the air, replaced by a chill that crept over her tired body. She leaned against him, feeling the steady pulse of his calm presence. Her throat still burned and her stomach grumbled from hunger, but for the first time since she had been left alone, Nava felt that someone cared. The man looked at her gently and said, "Don't worry, you're safe now. My name is Samuel Hayes. I live just over the ridge. I will take care of you." Nava's eyes widened. She had never seen a white man before, except from a distance. She did not know if she could trust him, but the kindness in his voice and the care in his actions gave her a glimmer of hope. Her hands were still trembling from the ropes, and she tried to speak, but only a weak whisper came out. Samuel nodded, understanding her silence. He offered her a small pouch of dried fruit from his saddlebag. Nava took it slowly, tasting each piece as if it were a treasure. Her body needed nourishment, but her mind needed reassurance even more. The desert was quiet now, except for the soft rustle of the wind and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Samuel checked the horizon carefully. "Bah! We should move before it gets too dark," he said. "Night in the desert can be dangerous." He lifted Nava gently onto his horse, making sure she was secure. She clung to him, still unsure, but she did not resist. The horse walked steadily, its hooves crunching softly over the rocky sand. Nava's heart pounded with each step, partly from fear and partly from relief. As they traveled, Samuel spoke softly, not wanting to overwhelm her. "You must have been very brave to survive alone this long," he said. Nava only nodded, her eyes fixed on the ground. trust did not come easily. Years of conflict between settlers and tribes had taught her that not everyone meant well. She had been abandoned by her own tribe in a moment of danger, and the thought still hurt deeply. But Samuel's gentle tone and careful movements made her feel safe, even if just a little. The journey was slow. The desert was full of obstacles, jagged rocks, hidden dips, and loose sand that made the horse stumble. Samuel guided the animal carefully, never letting Nava feel the bumps too sharply. He was an experienced rider, a man who had spent his life understanding the land. He knew where to find water, where to rest, and how to avoid dangerous animals. Nava watched him, silently, amazed by his skill. For the first time, she saw that not all people were cruel or dangerous. Some could be strong and kind at the same time. Hours passed, and the sky turned from orange to deep purple. The desert cooled rapidly, and the wind carried a faint chill. Nava shivered, holding tightly to Samuel. He noticed and pulled a woolen blanket from his saddle, wrapping it gently around her shoulders. She smelled the faint scent of leather in the outdoors, something unfamiliar but comforting. Her small hands pressed the blanket tightly, as if it were a shield against the world's dangers. Samuel led the horse to a small spring he knew, hidden among rocks and sparse shrubs. The water sparkled in the moonlight, pure and clear. Nava knelt beside it, cupping the cool liquid in her hands and drinking slowly. Each sip felt like a miracle after the harsh sun and long hours of thirst. Samuel watched, waiting patiently, giving her time to regain her strength. "Drink slowly," he said. "There's plenty for both of us." Nava nodded, finally feeling a little more at ease. After the water, Samuel offered some of his own food, bread, dried meat, and more dried fruit. Nava's stomach growled loudly as she accepted the food. She had eaten so little in the past days, and every bite was a comfort. The taste of bread, soft and warm, reminded her of the meals she had with her family before the attack. Her mind drifted to memories of laughter, of stories told by the fire, and of her father's kind voice. Tears pricked her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She was grateful for this moment of safety. As night fell, Samuel built a small fire using dry wood and stones. The flames crackled softly, casting a warm glow around them. The desert at night was quiet, almost peaceful, but Nava knew it could be dangerous. Coyotes and other predators roamed, and the cold could be deadly. Samuel kept the fire small but steady, his eyes scanning the dark beyond the circle of light. He did not speak much now, letting Nava rest while keeping a careful watch. Nava lay beside the fire, wrapped in the blanket. Her body was tired, but her mind was alert. She listened to the wind and the sounds of the desert, learning its language slowly. She realized that survival required more than courage. It required knowledge, patience, and respect for the land. Samuel seemed to understand this deeply. She watched him quietly, noticing how he moved, how he prepared food, and how he checked the fire and the surroundings. Even though he was a stranger, she began to feel safe in his presence. During the night, a sudden noise startled them both. A small desert animal, perhaps a fox or a coyote, had come close to the fire. Samuel's hand instinctively reached for his rifle, but he stopped. He did not want to harm the creature unnecessarily. Instead, he made a soft noise, shooing it away. Nava watched, impressed by his calm and careful approach. She realized that strength was not only about fighting, but also about knowing when to act and when to wait. Hours passed, and sleep finally came to Nava. She dreamt of her tribe, of running through fields of green instead of endless sand. She dreamt of water, of firelight, and of the gentle hands of someone who could care for her. Samuel, meanwhile, kept watch, his own sleep light and alert. He thought about the girl, about the hardships she had faced, and about the loneliness of the desert. He felt a quiet satisfaction knowing he had found her in time, that he could make a difference, even if small. When the first light of dawn appeared, painting the desert in soft pinks and blues, Nava awoke. The cold air made her shiver, but Samuel quickly offered her water and more of the blanket. She drank slowly, feeling the warmth of the fire on her face. and the comfort of the blanket around her shoulders. She was still cautious, still unsure if she could trust him completely, but a small spark of hope had grown. Samuel prepared the horse, checking the saddlebags and the water supply. He offered his hand to help Nava mount. "We need to move carefully today," he said. "There are long stretches with no water, and the sun will be strong." Nava nodded, gripping the saddle tightly. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, but for the first time, it seemed less terrifying. She had someone beside her, someone who understood the land and how to survive it. As they rode through the desert, Nava slowly began to talk. At first it was small words, fragments of her story. The attack, being left behind, the fear and the thirst. Samuel listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. He offered gentle reassurances, explaining that not everyone in the world was cruel and that there were people who helped without asking for anything in return. Nava began to believe him, her heart opening slowly to the possibility of trust. The day was long, but they moved steadily. Samuel found shaded spots for short rests, and he encouraged Nava to drink water and eat small amounts to keep her strength. The desert was still harsh, still dangerous, but the journey was made lighter by companionship. Nava began to learn from Samuel how to notice signs of water, how to read the wind, and how to conserve energy. She realized that survival was not just about escaping danger, but about learning, observing, and preparing for the next challenge. By late afternoon, they spotted a small ridge in the distance, the edge of Samuel's ranch. Nava's heart leapt. She did not know what awaited her there, but the sight of familiar land, grass instead of sand, fences instead of endless rocks, gave her hope. Samuel guided the horse carefully toward the ridge, aware that their journey was far from over, but that this step was important. Nava held tightly to him, feeling a mixture of relief, excitement, and nervous anticipation. For the first time since being left in the desert, Nava allowed herself to imagine safety, warmth, and care. She was still cautious, still aware of the world's dangers, but she knew she had found an ally. Samuel's quiet bravery, patience, and kindness had made her believe that even in the harshest conditions there were people who would help, who would protect, and who would guide the lost to safety. As they approached the ranch, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land. Nava looked around in wonder, seeing fences, small buildings, and green patches where water had made life possible. She realized that this place, this small piece of land in the vast desert, might be the start of something new, a chance to heal, to rest, and to survive. And she understood that her journey with Samuel was just beginning. The sun rose higher over the desert, burning off the morning chill and filling the sky with warm light.
Nava and Samuel were on the move again, riding slowly through the rocky terrain. Nava had begun to feel stronger after the night of rest, water, and food, but her body still ached from the exhaustion of the past days.
Samuel noticed every movement she made, adjusting his pace so she would not struggle. The quiet companionship between them was growing, built on careful patience and shared survival. Nava watched the desert closely as they traveled. Every plant, every rock, every shadow held a story. Samuel had shown her how to recognize signs of water hidden beneath the sand, how to notice the faint tracks of animals, and how to predict the weather by looking at the clouds. Nava had listened carefully, learning quickly. She realized that the desert was not only dangerous but also full of life if one knew how to read it. This knowledge gave her a new sense of confidence, and she began to speak more freely with Samuel, asking questions and offering observations of her own. The bond between them grew stronger as the hours passed. Nava had always been cautious around strangers, and especially around settlers whom she had been taught to fear. But Samuel never rushed her or forced her to speak. He was patient, gentle, and careful with his words. "You don't need to trust me all at once," he had said the night before. "Take your time. I will not let anything happen to you." Nava found herself thinking about those words often. They were simple, yet they carried a promise she could hold on to in the middle of fear and uncertainty. As the sun reached its peak, the heat became oppressive. Nava wiped sweat from her brow and tried to shield her eyes from the bright light. Samuel spotted a small rocky overhang ahead and guided the horse toward it. They dismounted, and he helped her find a place to sit in the shade. He handed her some water and dried fruit, and she ate slowly, savoring every bite. The heat of the day made movement dangerous, and Samuel knew that resting in the shade was essential for their survival. While they rested, Nava spoke a little about her tribe. She told Samuel about the journey they had been on, the attack by the rival faction, and the moment she had been left behind. Her voice was quiet, and sometimes it trembled, but she spoke because she felt safe with him. Samuel listened carefully, nodding and offering gentle words of encouragement. He did not interrupt, and he did not judge. He understood that her story was her own and that sharing it was an act of trust. Suddenly, a noise broke the quiet. A small group of desert coyotes had emerged from the rocks, attracted by the scent of food. Nava froze, her heart pounding. She had learned to fear predators from a young age, and her mind raced with memories of dangers she had faced. Samuel remained calm, observing the coyotes carefully. He whispered to Nava to stay quiet and still, and she obeyed, feeling the tension in her small body. The coyotes approached cautiously, sniffing the ground. But Samuel stood his ground, speaking softly to them. After a tense moment, they turned and disappeared into the distance. Nava exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. "You weren't afraid," she said, her voice small but amazed. Samuel smiled gently. "I was careful," he replied. "Strength is knowing when to act and when to wait. Courage isn't always about fighting. It's about surviving and protecting others." Nava thought about those words. She had always believed that courage meant facing danger head-on, but now she understood that patience, wisdom, and careful observation were just as important. After the danger had passed, they continued their journey. The terrain grew more difficult, with jagged rocks and deep sand stretching before them. Nava's legs ached, and her grip on the saddle tightened. Samuel noticed her struggle and slowed the horse's pace, encouraging her with gentle words. "We are doing well," he said. "The ridge ahead will give us a chance to rest again, just a little farther." Nava nodded, finding comfort in his calm confidence. She realized that having someone to guide her made the desert less frightening. By late afternoon, the sky had turned a deep shade of gold. The sun's heat was still strong, but shadows began to lengthen across the desert. Nava and Samuel spotted a small grove of shrubs and trees in the distance, a rare patch of shade in the vast desert. They rode toward it, relief washing over them as they approached. Samuel helped Nava dismount and led her to a shaded spot beneath the trees. The soft rustle of leaves and the faint sound of a small stream nearby made Nava feel almost as if she had entered a different world. While Nava rested, Samuel examined the path ahead. He knew that the desert was unpredictable, with sudden cliffs, hidden holes, and shifting sands that could make travel dangerous. He pointed out safe routes to Nava, showing her how to read the signs of the land. Nava watched closely, absorbing every detail. She realized that she was learning not only to survive, but also to understand the desert as if it were alive, full of hidden messages and warnings. As they prepared to move again, Samuel noticed something unusual. A faint trail of smoke rose in the distance. He squinted against the sunlight and examined the direction carefully. Nava's eyes followed his, curious and cautious. "Smoke can mean people," Samuel said quietly. "We need to be careful." "Not everyone out here will be friendly." Nava felt a shiver run down her spine, remembering the rivals who had left her behind. She trusted Samuel, but the unknown still brought fear. They approached the area slowly, keeping to the shadows and rocks for cover. As they drew closer, Nava could see that the smoke came from a small group of travelers who seemed to be resting for the day. Samuel studied them carefully. They did not appear hostile, but caution was necessary. He guided the horse around the group, keeping a safe distance, and whispered instructions to Nava on how to stay quiet and alert. Nava followed every word, amazed at how much Samuel seemed to know about handling danger. After passing the travelers safely, Nava felt a mix of relief and admiration. She realized that the desert was not only dangerous but also full of lessons. Samuel was teaching her more than survival skills. He was teaching her how to remain calm in the face of fear, how to observe the world carefully, and how to trust her instincts. She began to feel a sense of partnership with him, a quiet bond that grew stronger with every shared challenge. As evening approached, they finally reached the edge of Samuel's ranch. The sight of fences, green pastures, and small buildings filled Nava with awe. She had spent so much time in the harsh desert that this sight felt almost magical. Samuel guided the horse carefully down a gentle slope and led Nava toward the barn, where a small fire burned and fresh water awaited. She dismounted with relief, her legs trembling but her heart lighter than it had been in days. Samuel showed her to a small room in the barn, clean and safe, where she could rest properly. Nava sat on a soft bed of blankets, feeling warmth and comfort she had not known for days. She looked around at the simple room with its wooden walls and small window and realized that she was finally safe. Samuel had guided her through the desert, protected her from danger, and given her the first taste of safety and care she had felt since being abandoned. As night fell, Nava thought about the journey. She remembered the fear of being left alone, the scorching sun, the endless sand and the predators that roamed the desert. She also remembered Samuel's steady presence, his gentle words and his careful guidance. For the first time, she believed that there were people in the world who could be trusted, who would help without expecting anything in return. Samuel sat outside the barn, keeping watch as Nava slept. He reflected on the day's journey, on the trust that had begun to grow between them, and on the challenges that still lay ahead. He knew that the desert was unpredictable, but he also knew that Nava had strength beyond her years. She had survived when others would have given up, and she had begun to learn how to read the world around her. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the ranch, both Nava and Samuel had found a quiet peace. The desert outside remained vast and harsh, but inside the barn there was safety, warmth, and the beginnings of trust. Nava slept deeply, dreaming of water, shade, and the kind hands that had guided her through the desert. Samuel remained alert, knowing that his role as protector was far from over, but quietly proud of the courage the young girl had shown. The night passed without incident, and when the first light of dawn appeared, Nava awoke to the soft glow of the sun filtering through the window. She stretched carefully, feeling stronger than she had the day before. Samuel entered with a small bowl of water and some bread, smiling gently. "You rested well," he said. Nava nodded, feeling a quiet gratitude. She knew that the journey was not over, but she also knew that she was not alone anymore. The morning sun rose over the ranch, painting the pastures with soft gold and warming the cool desert air. Nava woke to the sound of birds chirping and the faint rustle of leaves outside the window. She stretched carefully, still feeling some stiffness in her legs, but a quiet sense of hope filled her heart. She looked around the small room, thinking of how far she had come since the day she had been left alone in the desert. The memory of the harsh sun, the endless sand, and the moment she had felt abandoned was still strong, but now it shared space with something new. Trust, care, and the presence of someone who truly wanted to help her. His face was calm, his movements deliberate, as if he had already spent decades learning how to handle difficult situations. "Good morning," he said softly. "You rested well?" Nava nodded, reaching for a piece of bread. She chewed slowly, savoring the simple taste and the warmth of safety it represented. She realized that the smallest comforts, water, food, shade, and safety, could feel like miracles after what she had endured. After breakfast, Samuel helped Nava prepare for the next stage of their journey. They would need to leave the ranch and travel to the nearest settlement, where she could be reunited with her tribe. Samuel carefully checked their supplies: water, dried food, a small first aid kit, and ropes. He examined the map etched in his memory, planning the safest route through the desert. Nava watched closely, absorbing every detail. She had learned much about survival, observation, and patience, but she still had much to learn about the dangers that lay ahead. As they set out, the sun climbed higher, and the desert stretched endlessly before them. Nava's small hands clutched the reins tightly, her eyes scanning the landscape for any signs of danger. She remembered the attack, the abandonment, and the harsh lessons the desert had already taught her. She was cautious, yet her confidence was growing, bolstered by Samuel's calm presence and guidance. "We need to move steadily," he said. "The desert can be unpredictable. Small mistakes can become big problems." Nava nodded, understanding the importance of every word. The first challenge came sooner than expected. A dry riverbed lay ahead, its sand loose and treacherous. Samuel guided the horse carefully, showing Nava how to choose the firmest patches of sand to walk on. As they crossed, Nava's heart raced. She had never imagined that the desert could be both beautiful and dangerous at the same time. She learned to trust Samuel's experience, watching as he navigated the tricky terrain without hesitation. The riverbed, once crossed, revealed a cluster of rocks that provided a small patch of shade. They paused to rest, drink water, and regain strength before continuing. During the pause, Nava began to speak more freely. She shared small details of her life before the attack, about the times she had played near the campfire, helped her mother with chores, and listened to her father's stories. Samuel listened patiently, never interrupting, only offering gentle encouragement. "Your tribe will be proud of your courage," he said. Nava felt a flicker of pride. Even in the midst of fear and uncertainty, she had survived. She had learned to be brave, to observe carefully, and to trust only when necessary. As they continued, shadows began to grow longer, signaling the approach of afternoon. The heat remained intense, and the desert seemed to stretch endlessly. Nava's muscles ached, and fatigue threatened to slow her down. Samuel noticed and encouraged her, offering water and pointing out patches of shade for small rests. He taught her how to pace herself, to conserve energy, and to stay aware of the environment. Every lesson was practical, born from years of experience, and Nava absorbed it eagerly. She realized that survival was not just about strength or speed, it was about observation, patience, and understanding the land. Suddenly, a movement caught their attention. A small herd of deer appeared in the distance, crossing the sand with cautious steps. Nava's eyes widened. She had learned to read tracks and signs of animals, and she pointed them out to Samuel. "They're moving toward water," she said, her voice filled with quiet excitement. Samuel nodded, impressed by her observation. "Good eye," he replied. "You are learning well." The desert can teach anyone who pays attention.
Nava felt a sense of accomplishment.
She realized that the knowledge she was gaining was just as valuable as her growing confidence. As evening approached, the temperature began to drop, but a new challenge arose. Dark clouds appeared on the horizon, carrying the promise of a sudden desert storm. Samuel observed them carefully. "We need to find shelter quickly," he said. Nava's heart raced as the wind picked up, carrying dust and sand that stung their skin. Samuel guided the horse toward a rocky outcrop, a natural formation that could provide some protection from the storm. Nava dismounted, following his careful instructions to stay low and move cautiously. The storm hit with sudden force. Wind howled through the desert, carrying sand and small debris. Nava struggled to keep her footing, her small hands gripping the rocks. Samuel stayed close, shielding her from the worst of the wind and guiding her to a safer spot. They huddled together, sharing the warmth of their bodies and the small shelter the rocks provided. The storm raged for what felt like hours, testing their patience and courage. Nava learned that survival often required waiting, enduring, and trusting in experience and preparation. After the storm passed, the desert was quiet again, but the ground was wet and slippery. Nava shivered, but she felt proud. She had faced a storm, something she never thought she could survive. Samuel offered her a sip of water and some dried fruit, and they rested briefly before continuing. The storm had taught them both a valuable lesson. Even in a land as harsh as the desert, challenges could be faced and overcome with patience, knowledge, and teamwork. As night fell, the desert transformed. Stars sparkled above and the air grew cool and crisp. Nava and Samuel set up a small camp for the night, finding a flat patch of sand near a group of rocks. Samuel started a small fire, careful to keep it controlled, and Nava watched, fascinated. She had never seen someone so skilled at making a fire survive the desert night. The flames provided warmth, light, and a sense of safety. Nava felt her trust in Samuel deepen further. He had guided her through dangers, taught her survival skills, and protected her with patience and courage. During the night, Nava reflected on the journey. She remembered the fear of being left alone, the scorching sun, the lack of water, and the predators that had roamed near her. She also remembered the steady presence of Samuel, the lessons he had taught her, and the calm courage he had shown in the face of danger. She realized that she was learning not just to survive, but to understand the desert, to respect its challenges, and to navigate it with skill and care. When dawn appeared, Nava woke to the soft light of the sun filtering through the rocks. Samuel was already awake, checking their supplies and ensuring they were ready to continue. Nava felt a renewed sense of determination. She knew that the journey to the settlement was not over, but she also knew that she was not alone anymore. Samuel had shown her that courage, patience, and knowledge were powerful tools, and she was ready to face the next challenge. As they rode through the desert, they encountered more obstacles: rocky slopes, patches of loose sand, and narrow paths between cliffs. Nava followed Samuel's instructions carefully, learning to trust her instincts and the guidance he provided. She began to notice small signs of life: birds, tracks of small animals, and the subtle changes in the wind that indicated approaching weather. Every observation strengthened her confidence and her understanding of the land. By late afternoon, they finally saw the distant outline of the settlement they had been traveling toward. Nava's heart leapt with excitement. She had survived the desert storms and danger, and now she was close to safety and the possibility of reuniting with her tribe. Samuel guided the horse carefully, ensuring that Nava remained steady and prepared for the final stretch. She held tightly to the reins, her eyes filled with hope and determination. As they approached the settlement, the fences, buildings, and signs of life filled Nava with awe. She had spent so long in the harsh desert that this sight felt almost magical. Samuel led the horse down a gentle slope and helped her dismount. Nava's legs trembled, but her heart was light. She realized that she had made it through the desert not only because of her own courage, but also because of the guidance, patience, and protection Samuel had offered. For the first time in many days, Nava felt a deep sense of relief. She had faced danger, survived storms, learned to trust, and navigated the desert with skill. Samuel had not only helped her physically, but had taught her lessons about courage, patience, and partnership that she would carry with her forever. As they walked into the settlement, she felt a quiet gratitude, knowing that she was about to be reunited with her tribe and start a new chapter of her life, stronger and wiser than before. The sun rose slowly over the settlement, filling the sky with soft hues of gold and pink. Nava sat on the edge of Samuel's horse, looking out at the small cluster of buildings that promised safety, warmth, and the possibility of reunion with her tribe. Her heart beat quickly, a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and relief. After days of struggle in the desert, of being abandoned, and surviving storms, hunger, and fear, she was finally close to her family. But at the same time, she felt a strange uncertainty. What if they were not there? What if they had given up hope of finding her? Samuel noticed her tension. He gave her a gentle smile. "It's okay," he said softly. "They will be here. They care about you. And now you are safe." Nava nodded, gripping the reins tightly. She trusted Samuel completely, but the thought of seeing her family after so much time apart filled her with a mixture of joy and anxiety. Her small hands shook slightly, not from the cold but from the weight of the moment. As they rode closer, a group of people appeared at the edge of the settlement. Nava's heart leapt. Her tribe was there. Faces she had not seen in days, some she had never seen before, all searching anxiously for her. Her mother's eyes were wide, scanning every figure that approached. When they saw her, a cry of relief and joy rose above the quiet morning. Nava's heart filled with happiness she had almost forgotten. She looked at Samuel, gratitude shining in her eyes. He had guided her through the desert, protected her from danger, and brought her safely to this moment. Samuel dismounted and helped Nava down from the horse. She ran a few steps toward her mother, who gathered her in a strong, warm embrace. Tears streamed down her mother's face, and Nava's own eyes filled with tears. "I was so worried," her mother whispered, holding her tightly. Nava felt the ache of fear and loneliness from the past days begin to melt away. She had survived, and now she was home. The other members of the tribe rushed forward, surrounding Nava with hugs, questions, and gentle touches. They were amazed at her survival, at the courage she had shown, and at the calm strength that Samuel had helped her regain. Elders patted her shoulder, and children looked at her with wide eyes. Hearing the story of how she had been left alone in the desert, and how a stranger had rescued her, Nava listened quietly, proud but humble, realizing that the desert had changed her. She was stronger, braver, and wiser than before. Samuel stood back, watching the reunion with quiet satisfaction. He had helped the girl, guided her through the desert, and ensured her safety, but he never sought praise or recognition. He simply wanted to do what was right. As he watched the reunion, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His work in the desert, his understanding of the land, and his courage had made a difference in someone's life. And in that moment, he understood that sometimes the simplest acts of kindness could have the greatest impact. The tribe invited Samuel to sit with them, offering food and water. Nava stayed close, introducing him to her mother and other family members. They asked many questions about the journey, the desert, and how he had found her. Samuel answered patiently, never boasting, only describing the events with calm honesty. He spoke of the desert's dangers, the importance of patience and observation, and the lessons he had shared with Nava along the way. The tribe listened carefully, recognizing his wisdom and bravery. As the day went on, Nava explored the settlement with her family. She marveled at the simple comforts she had missed: shaded homes, flowing water, and the presence of people who cared for her. She felt a deep connection to her tribe, strengthened by the ordeal she had survived. Samuel walked beside her, pointing out the paths he had taken, the signs he had observed, and the small lessons that had helped them navigate the desert safely. Nava realized that she had not only been rescued but also educated in the ways of the desert and the strength of human kindness. By evening, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the settlement. The tribe gathered around a small fire, sharing stories and laughter. Nava sat close to her mother, listening to tales of their past and dreams for the future. She thought of Samuel, whose presence had changed the course of her life. She wanted to thank him properly, to express the gratitude she felt deep in her heart. When she finally looked up at him, she saw a quiet smile, one that said he understood without words. Samuel nodded toward her, giving a simple gesture of reassurance. Nava felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that this journey had not only been about survival in the desert, but also about the power of trust, courage, and human connection. She had been abandoned, left to face impossible odds, yet she had been saved by the kindness of a stranger who had risked time and effort to ensure her safety. The night deepened, and the stars sparkled above, a reminder of the vast desert that lay beyond the settlement. Nava looked up at the sky, feeling small but strong, aware of the journey she had undertaken and the lessons she had learned. She understood now that courage was not just about facing danger, but also about trusting, observing, and surviving with wisdom. Samuel had taught her these lessons through action, patience, and quiet guidance. Her mother held her hand gently. "You are brave," she said softly. "You survived when so many would have given up." "You have grown stronger because of what you endured." Nava smiled faintly, thinking of the long days and nights in the desert, of the fear and hope she had carried together. She had survived because of her own courage, yes, but also because of Samuel's guidance. The bond they had formed was unspoken yet powerful. Samuel prepared to leave the next morning, but the tribe insisted he stay for a meal. Nava walked beside him, holding his hand briefly. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but full of sincerity. "I would not have made it without you." Samuel smiled, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You were brave, Nava. You faced the desert and survived."
"I just helped you along the way." The night passed peacefully.
Nava slept soundly, surrounded by her family, feeling the warmth of safety she had not known for days. Samuel stayed nearby, knowing that his role as guide was complete, but understanding that the lessons and trust he had shared would stay with her forever. He reflected on the journey, the challenges they had faced, and the courage the young girl had shown. It had been a journey of danger, patience, learning, and growth for both of them. As dawn appeared, Nava awoke to the soft light of the sun filtering through the small window. She looked around at her family, at the small comforts she had missed, and at Samuel, who was preparing to leave. She felt a deep gratitude, a mixture of sadness at parting and joy at having survived. Samuel helped her to stand, and they walked together to the edge of the settlement. Nava's family watched, offering smiles, thanks, and gestures of respect. Samuel mounted his horse, ready to return to his ranch. Nava stood beside him for a moment, feeling the bond that had formed between them. "Be safe," he said gently. Nava nodded, her heart full. She realized that this journey had not only saved her life but had also taught her about trust, courage, and kindness. She had learned that even in the harshest desert, help could come from the most unexpected places. As Samuel rode away, Nava turned back toward her family, feeling a mixture of relief, joy, and quiet reflection. She understood that the desert had changed her, taught her, and strengthened her. She thought of the long days and nights of struggle, of the thirst and hunger, of fear and hope, and of the presence of a man who had guided her to safety. The lessons she had learned would stay with her forever. Nava spent the next days with her tribe, telling them about the journey, the desert, and the kindness of Samuel Hayes. They listened with amazement, proud of her courage and grateful for the stranger who had helped her. She shared the survival skills she had learned, the signs to watch for, and the patience required to navigate the desert. Her story became a lesson for the younger members of the tribe, inspiring respect for the land, courage in the face of danger, and hope that kindness could be found even in the harshest conditions. Over time, Nava grew stronger, wiser, and more confident. She understood now that survival was not just about physical strength, but also about patience, observation, and trust. The desert had tested her, and she had passed with courage and skill. Samuel's presence had been a turning point, showing her that human kindness and wisdom could make a difference even in the most desperate situations. The sun set over the settlement, painting the sky with colors of hope and promise. Nava stood quietly, watching the horizon, feeling the warmth of her family around her. She knew that her journey had been extraordinary, a story of survival, courage, and trust. She also knew that Samuel's help had changed her life forever. The desert was behind her, but the lessons she had learned would guide her for the rest of her days. And in the quiet of the evening, Nava whispered a simple thought to herself, one that would remain with her always. Courage, patience, and kindness could overcome even the harshest deserts of life.